Batch number 8, Bloodshed, Part 2. There are things in life that you simply can't prepare for. The first day at a new school, when a parent drops their child off at college, definitely the first night alone with the newborn. But losing the first team member, a highly ranked mission specialist at that, during the human civilization's first intergalactic war on an unknown planet home to fire-breathing moon dragons? Yep, 100% fully prepared for that one. As the hot sand whipped his face, Captain Glorious violently pulled the ripcord up from his parachute, beelining his way towards the fallen baby moon dragon to find any sort of concrete evidence of Snazzy's survival. The captain had disobeyed Commander Sean's orders to have the entirety of the crew stay in the ship, taking a few of his most trusted men on a rescue mission while Destiny's Fortune continued to hold its own against the dragons hundreds of feet in the air above. "Over there! I see an arm poking out of the dunes!" VRA shouted to Captain G through the whistling storm brewed up by the firefight. The crew descended into the dunes, landing a few hundred feet away from the moon dragon and the jacket that they did identify from the sky above. Captain G, Risk, VRA, Fizzy, and Jasooner sprinted as fast as they could up the dune, avoiding the spontaneous dust devils that traversed the battlefield. Captain Glorious's heart sunk into his stomach as the reality of the situation became extraordinarily clear with each panicking step. His worst fears realized as Snazzy's lifeless body was uncovered by the wind. The entirety of the crew dropped to their knees, distraught by the sight of losing the mission specialist to their own gunfire. Captain Glorious, unable to say a single word as his head filled with rage, punched the sand ferociously as the crew put their hands on his shoulder. Time stood still as soon as the moon dragons roared all around them. They just keep coming. Sheesh! We really have done it this time, Commander Vaughn exclaimed as Destiny's Fortune barrel rolled through several groups of advancing dragons, avoiding their V formation attack scheme. As gunners Charky and Steady continued to open fire across the desert, Commander Sean violently pounded his fist on the control deck. Xenu and the Council had betrayed them, forcing fire on one of their own. I knew something was up. They had us in the palm of their hand as soon as we crashed onto this wild desert, the commander shouted furiously. We were doomed from the start. The moon dragons are peaceful species. They only attack when provoked, said Ringbolt. Battle isn't their first instinct. They hunt by lulling their prey to sleep. They must have something that they were protecting in those caverns. Then what the heck are we supposed to do to get them to stop trying to burn us into space dust? Engineer Reimer yelled as he violently jerked the control side stick. We're not going to be able to hold them off for forever here. In between orders to crew members, Captain Brian was sidetracked by a strange movement coming from the corner of his eye. He took a quick glance down at his watch, realized that there was no ordinary distraction. The whites of the crystal began to slowly turn into a dark shade of black, while the normally brown hands began to reveal hues of gold. The captain had previously discovered that his watch acted up as soon as he first arrived on the planet a few days ago, but this magic was nothing that he'd ever seen before. The hands began to progressively turn counterclockwise, adjusting every time that he moved his arm around. It was like they were circling in on something out in the desert. Captain Brian followed the watch's trajectory as it continued to close in on Captain Glorious and the rest of the crew's relative location. Whatever his watch was doing, the captain knew that his team was in danger once again. Several feet behind the battleground sat the Mackinnon fleet of ships that had not too long ago desperately attempted to contact Destiny's Fortune for assistance. Inside the main cabin, Myrna walked apprehensively towards her father. She made eye contact with several warriors and generals alike, all coming to a similar conclusion. Sacred was never the initial target and may have never been in danger in the first place. Father, what is the meaning of all of this? Why did we lure the humans into a battle with the moon dragons? Our treaty with them has been nothing but peaceful for generations, hasn't it? Zenu took a deep breath as he turned to face his daughter. She had always been smarter than he'd given her credit for, consistently able to sense when things were even slightly in disarray. It was better to come clean now than to hide from the truth anymore. Myrna, my love, Mackinnon has been compromised. A dark evil has set foot on our beloved planet, searching for, I'm not quite sure what, but it has something to do with the humans that made their way here. None of this was coincidence. Evil has once again reared its head, and I was foolish to not stand up against it. The Mackinnon leader looked out over the horizon, shaking his head in pure horror. An honest mistake. Something that he could have never seen coming. As the vessel maneuvered amongst the waves of the ongoing moon dragons, a dark presence began to swallow the midday sky. There's nothing that we can do anymore for them. We no longer play a role in their destiny. Jasuner shook his hand off the captain's shoulder and placed it on the top of his helmet, trying to consolidate his leader any way possible. VRA and Fizzy both looked down at the sand, noticing more than just their own shadows. It was then that Captain Glorious took his eyes off the fallen mission specialist to discover what was the largest black cloud that he'd ever seen. It stretched from one side of the horizon and was rapidly approaching their location. He quickly rubbed his eyes, stood up, and he tried to get a better gauge of their surroundings. As he turned towards the rest of the crew, he noticed that Risk wasn't accounted for. Wait, where's Risk? Captain G shakingly shuddered. Please tell me that one of you saw him walk off somewhere. We can't lose any more of the crew today. The three recruits just could only shake their heads, but were able to point out that a very light series of footprints, despite the wind whipping up on the sand, still was able to be visible. VRA and Fizzy followed the trail where they were able to track down Risk just a couple of 100 feet away. The payload specialist wouldn't normally abandon his captain, but he noticed something odd about an item in the sand that he had seen when they parachuted down. He turned around to the other recruits, showing them what had appeared to be a metal plate, an artifact of sorts, with a series of alien markings on it. Captain Glorious and Jasuner caught up with the others, staring at Risk's discovery in awe. Before anyone was able to get out another word, they all looked up in horror as a group of 5 dark, hooded figures descended from the now completely dark atmosphere above. The moon dragon shrieked and retreated as the warm heat waves of the dunes turned to a cold, desolate wasteland. The hooded figures had now landed roughly 50 feet away from the crew, with only the middle figure walking slowly to separate himself from the rest of the pack. Nifty removed his hood and pointed with a crooked, vile finger at Risk's chest. Despicable human, you have something that I want. The Wind Leader took another step forward, directing his next message to the rest of the crew. You have all served your purposes well. The Legion of Wind is pleased. Hand over the seal of Ilsendor to its rightful heir. The rest of the hooded figures started to head towards the crew to receive the ancient artifact. As Risk lifted the seal from his feet, he felt a powerful resistance coming from it as he attempted to extend his arms out towards the approaching figures. The quiet payload specialist felt an overwhelming rush of courage and strength channeling within him through the seal. He planted his back foot into the sand beneath him, speaking directly to Nifty with a bite in his voice that the crew had never heard before. You want it, alien slime? Come and get it, but you'll have to get through me first.
recruits, it's time for you to choose what you think happens next. Select 1 if you think Risk hands over the seal of Ilsindor. Select 2 if you think a surprise hero helps the Shot to the Moon crew escape Nifty and the Wen. Select 3 if you think Xenu and the Macedon fleet help save the crew.